Hi everyone, I hope that you are doing well this fine, allegedly summer morning. As some of you probably know, I work in education, teaching English specifically. And AI, of course, is a fairly big topic in our circles. It's something that we talk about in terms of how we can harness this technology for the betterment of our learners and for ourselves, I suppose. And we were having a conversation about AI in a ed tech, that's education technology, community of practice. And somebody mentioned a word that I'd never heard before. This word was decel. And I saw this word and I was like, what is it? What does it mean? So I went on the internet, Googled it, and it was quite interesting. It is a word which means decelerationist. So it's effectively somebody who wants to slow down according to certain sites, people who want to slow down the progress of technology. And so that got me thinking, because for the record, I accept that AI is a tool that's not going away anytime soon, but I'm certainly skeptical at best sometimes about the value of this tool. I think that there are individuals and institutions who seem to be placing a lot of faith in AI's ability to do a lot of pretty complex things, and I don't think it's in a place where it can handle a lot of those tasks to the extent that people are claiming that they can. For example, screen applications of people who applying for a job or something like that. I think it's just as prone to biases as a regular person. So does that make me a decel? And of course, the word itself, it's a very ugly word. It's very reminiscent, of course, of the word incel. And if you're not sure what the word incel means, well, welcome to the internet. It's very nice to have you here on your first day on this wonderful worldwide webbery. But just as a quick kind of recap, incels are people, often men, young men, who feel that they are hard done by because they're not getting a girlfriend or they're not having as much sex as they would like to. But anyway, so this got me thinking, because my fairly cynical view of AI would probably get me labeled as a decel by certain people on the internet. And I was wondering if that was fair, because many people see this as a derogatory term, something to be argued against, a person who holds views which is holding back the progress of humanity, which is kind of interesting to be grouped in with, because I'm certainly no troglodyte. I'm recording this on an iPhone, for goodness sake. I'm definitely embracing of new technologies. So then that got me thinking about labels in a wider sense, because I certainly felt very uncomfortable about the possibility of being labeled a decel. I certainly wouldn't want to be called something that I don't have any real connection of, especially seeing as some people see it as a bad thing. So why are labels seen as important to, well, I guess humanity at large? We seem quite happy in grouping people and applying labels and declaring somebody to be X, Y, or Z. But why? What's the value there? And why do some people push back against those labels so much? Because maybe it's useful if so many of us engage in this labeling of people in such a willy-nilly kind of manner. We love dividing ourselves into groups and tribes to, I guess, create a shorthand for those who are with us and those who are against us, the classic in-group, out-group type thing. When I was a teenager, and I've talked about this in another video, there was this whole self-identification, this labeling of which games console you saw as your, I guess, spirit console, the one that you identified with. I was Super Nintendo ride or die, and those Sega owners can suck it or something, I don't know. But it's something that seems baked into who we are as a species, and we just can't seem to get away from it. So I guess first of all, let's have a think about what kind of labels I feel do apply to me if I'm going to reject the assertion that I am a decel. Well, obviously I am trans, but also I am an educator, I am a occasional gamer, I suppose, a YouTuber, a vlogger, I suppose. That's what brings me here. Some of these things carry positive connotations, some of these things carry negative connotations, some of these things kind of happen just because of things that you do. I'm a partner to my girlfriend's, and so that label applies to me because I have a girlfriend and I feel I am her partner. That's why you get lumbered with these sorts of labels. Other ones you have to kind of struggle with, as the realities of accepting that label mean so much. Obviously, being trans means quite a lot, especially in the current climate that we find ourselves in. It means people will look at you in a particular way. They'll have certain ideas and thoughts about you as an individual and your value systems and all of that sort of thing, which is kind of fun, but also not. But on the other hand, accepting that I'm trans has given me access to, well, life, essentially. It's allowed me to live my life in a way that's more amenable to the way that I feel I am. It means that I've been able to get access to medications, I've been able to get access to treatments and specialist services and stuff like that. So while the label does have certain connotations, from a practical point of view, it means that I can get stuff done. And I know from talking to some of my neurodivergent friends, they felt similarly about having to accept the label of having ADHD or autism or something like this. It can be quite liberating because it gives a kind of rationalization for certain behaviors or needs or requirements. It makes you feel less alone, and it means that you aren't perhaps entirely a weirdo. It's been difficult to accept this identity, but at the same time, by embracing it, I do feel a lot more secure and comfortable in myself. It's complex, but I do know that some people feel that occasionally labels are given to them involuntarily. So in this case, in my case, it's being potentially called a decel, and I reject that. I don't think that wanting to wait a bit until we know a bit more about the actual benefits of AI before we start inserting it into our business practices, assuming that it can do X, Y, Z, isn't a bad thing. I think that's a good thing. And I mean, I can understand why some people would think that is not the case. Tech bros, for example, I'm sure, do not have a vested interest in pushing their financially led agenda on the world. But irony aside, I've had several people in my comment section reject the idea of being called transphobic. And that's really interesting because oftentimes they'll say this in the midst of saying things where they are talking about stuff or talking about trans people in a very prejudicial way. And I mean, I've talked about this before many times, that it's not necessarily, I'm not necessarily making a moral case when I'm calling somebody's behavior or actions, thoughts, transphobic. What I'm trying to do is put a label on those actions and those thoughts, and then hopefully the person will have a little bit of self-awareness and reflection and kind of look at themselves and think, well, transphobes are bad. Transphobia, like all of these kind of isms and phobias, is bad. So maybe I need to readjust my thinking here. And of course, trans people themselves are not immune to transphobia. Internalized transphobia is the bane of so many trans people's existences. So It's a label perhaps that shouldn't be used lightly, but at the same time, perhaps if that label is applied, even if you feel it's not warranted, maybe it's a good opportunity to have a little bit of self-reflection in that moment. So, in conclusion to this video, do I think labels are bad? Not really, no. I think that they are a necessary shortcut in terms of identifying certain things, features about individuals. I didn't touch on the cognitive load that meeting people can place, and so having these little shortcuts, these heuristics, these schemata to shortcut that process can be helpful, because it means that you're spending less time on having to process the world at large. But at the same time, a misapplication or a misunderstanding of what these labels mean can be quite damaging, especially when it comes to minority groups like trans people. Is being a decel a bad thing? Well, I don't know, because I see it as a kind of a made-up phrase that tech pros are using to try to belittle people who might disagree with them. And yes, before anybody starts putting in the comments section, I do understand the irony or the implication of where it might feel that people are being labelled transphobes just because they don't agree with trans people. But I think there's a clear difference between people who are looking at the world at large and the damage that technological leaps have made on people in general, especially working class and minority groups. You can look at the number of deaths that were caused in factories during the Industrial Revolution as one clear example in history, but the list is almost endless, coming up to present day, where there are people having to mine for the metals and chemicals that we use in, yes, our iPhones, and puts them at risk. Technological progress means people suffer. Trans rights does not. And I think that's a clear distinction that I would like to make there. But anyway, this is just something that's been on my mind, so I thought I'd share that. I've not had a kind of something that's on my mind video for a bit, I think. So there you are. Anyway, I hope that you are all having a wonderful day and have a wonderful week, and I will see you all very soon. Goodbye.